webcam. Isn't that funny they call it a webcam?
Where?
A webcam reminds me of those, like, the actual little cameras that you
Yeah.
would plug in by
Makes
USB.
me feel weird.
Yeah.
I feel like the first things I heard about, yeah, makes me
About
feel weird.
webcams
Yeah,
were kind of
it was for
weird.
weird purposes.
Hi, guys. Good evening. Hello, hello. We thought we'd go live one more time before Awareness School starts to talk about it. To talk about actually the syllabus of kind of the outline for the 10 weeks and what you get when you enroll in Awareness School. So feel free. Hi, Julie. Feel free to let us know if you have any questions. I did have 2 questions come in um, about how to heal and how to be okay with the process. So we can start with those ones, and then yeah, feel free to add any questions that you want to talk about. Just to review for anybody who has not heard about Awareness School yet, we are starting a 10-week thing this Thursday. And so every Thursday for the next 10 weeks, I think we're skipping Thanksgiving and then ending the week after Thanksgiving is when the program ends. But for 10 weeks, we're going to be doing a deep dive into your personality making machine, like the thing that makes you you. Awareness is seeing behind the scenes of all of the invisible stuff that runs the show of your experience. And so we're going to be looking at it through the lens of what's called the Ever Better Life course, which is an amazing 10 module course that Steve created. we did it together, but mostly Steve's brain, because it's a framework. It's a framework for understanding how you work. And I found it extraordinarily helpful to organize my experience, to understand kind of the basic substrate from which experiences are generated. So the question of something like how to heal. So like when you have the framework of GNM, the 5 biological laws, a big part of understanding how to heal and how to resolve like conflicts that have been going on for a long time really is this understanding of self. How did I generate this perception of the world? How did I generate this perception of other people, of myself? Why do I think and feel and do the things I think and feel and do? And if that's still a mystery to you, understanding it could be the key to you figuring out how to stop doing whatever patterns are keeping you stuck in the loops that you're stuck in and start doing something new. And so the awareness school is not about healing. It's not about GNM. It's about the stuff behind the scenes that influences healing, that influences how you think, feel, and do in the world. And so, just so that's clear, we talked a little bit about in that in the last video about like, is this about GNM? No, it is about the stuff, the background apparatus through which you even understand GNM, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the ways that I think about it or talk about it is like it's a way of thinking about thinking and acting that allows you to actually effectively change the thoughts and actions that give rise to the experiences and results that make up what it's like to be you. And one of the things that I found was that in my own life, right, and in working with other people, I noticed that a lot of people they don't have a useful way of thinking about thinking. When they think about thinking, or say when they think about their feelings, they tend to think about their feelings as something that just happens, or they think about their feelings as something that's bad, or they think about their feelings as something that's inevitable, or whatever. And that's not a particularly useful way of thinking about those things. It tends to, I mean, here's something that's kind of interesting. Let's say I think a negative thought. Not that I would ever do that, right? Because I'm like a personal growth master and everything like that. But let's just pretend that I was imperfect and I thought a negative thought sometime. Um, I think the thoughts in my past. It's my immediate past, but it's still my past. There are ways that I can think about having thought something negative. There are ways that I can think about having thought something unresourceful, right? Unlovely, unpleasant, kind of worrisome, or self-devaluing, whatever. There are ways that I can think about having thought something negative that are more or less useful. Let's say I'm feeling bad. There are a range of ways that I can respond to the fact that I'm feeling. Doesn't have to be feeling bad. Let's say I'm feeling good. Let's say I'm feeling bad. Let's say I'm feeling neutral. Let's say I'm feeling ecstatic. I'm feeling bleh. I'm feeling despondent. Right? Regardless of how I'm feeling at a given moment in time, there are a range of choices available to me in terms of how I can react to or respond to the fact that I'm feeling that way. And it's not that some of them are right and some of them are wrong. I don't really care about that. What I'm interested in is kind of the range of resourcefulness. And this is a nice thing because I found that I felt like crap a lot of the time, especially when I first started doing this stuff. And so I needed an approach to personal growth, to resourceful thinking that gave me something useful to do when I felt like crap and when I felt like personal growth was just a bunch of bullshit. Because like sometimes when I was in a good mood, it's like I'd read personal growth stuff, but oh, this is all so great and it makes perfect sense and all this. But then the next morning when something didn't go right, I was like a different person. It was like it was I was repulsed by the stuff one of the things for me is that like really effective tools for personal change need to be as accessible and as appealing and as effective when you are not at your best as they are when you're at your best. And so, a lot of what this course is about giving you ideas about how to interact with it's not a template for how you ought to think and how you ought to feel, right? I should feel grateful all the time. Well, shit, I don't. And I kind of feel angry about the idea that I'm even supposed to feel grateful. And that makes me feel worse than I felt before I thought about how grateful I ought to be feeling. This is going to give you the ability, the flexibility, right? And the kind of capacity just to exercise kind of conscious, more resourceful choices to deal more effectively with however it is that you happen to be feeling at a given moment in time. To deal, I mean, if you have unconscious, automatic, habitual patterns of negative thinking, okay, that's a thing that happens sometimes, right? There are more and less resourceful ways of responding to the fact that when I'm not watching my mind spews out negativity. Okay, how do I deal with that? What can I do? Well, if you try to force a whole bunch of like super saccharine, ultra positive crap down your mental mouth when you're like not, you're going to get even more negative. You're going to get, if you're like me, you're going to get pissed off, you're going to get annoyed, you're not going to want to do it. It's okay, fine. Let 100%, over the top Tony Robbins positivity doesn't work for me when I'm in that state. What can I do? There's still something a little bit more useful than what I typically do when I'm in this state that will allow me to kind of move in the direction of where I want to go. The stuff also applies to like life. If you're in less than ideal life circumstances, it's a bad situation, right? I mean, it's a bad situation. What are you going to do? I mean, you don't have to be an ultra positive, I believe everything's possible kind of person to kind of begin to wrap your mind around or to consider the possibility that for a person like you in the situation like the one that maybe you're in right now, there are more and less resourceful ways for you to think about and behaviorally interact with the facts that make up your current life situation. That's not, I don't think that's like over the top positive. That's just, kind of common sense, right? That there's that if I call my boss up and tell him F you, and I turn to my spouse and tell them F you, and I tell my kids F you, and I say I hate everyone and I don't want to, and I run up a bunch of credit cards and I make things as bad as I possibly can. I drive my car into it. Not so resourceful, right? That's obviously at one end. At the other end, there are ways of thinking about everything, including things that you are not currently willing or able to think positively about that will be more resourceful, more useful than however it is you're currently thinking about them. There's somewhere between sunshine and rainbows and what you're currently doing that will be just an adjustment that is worthwhile, but also adjustable, attainable, possible for you, given the constraints that you're currently working under, that will allow you to start moving the direction that you want to move. The course is about identifying that for you. It's about teaching you how to. It's about making you aware of the choices and the options that you currently have in terms of how to operate your mind, and about showing you a whole bunch of cool stuff that you can do. Sort of like, it's almost like mental martial arts in a way. You get into a martial arts class and they teach some basic roles and moves, and depending on what it is, it might teach you a form or whatever. But sometimes in martial art training, what it comes down to is, hey, if somebody does this, here's what you do. They grab your wrist, they grab your arm, they come up behind you and they put their arm around. And this is sort of like, okay, if your mind or life comes up behind you and grabs you this way, or if you find yourself in this kind of a situation, or if you find yourself feeling this, here's a way that you can get out of that lock, out of that hold. Here's a way that you can extricate yourself from that situation. Here's a way that you can reverse this attack that your mind seems to be putting on you, or that life seems to be putting on you. And so it's, a whole bunch of cool stuff that you can do to improve what it's like to be you. And my favorite part about this is that it doesn't require that you believe any bullshit, and it doesn't require that you pretend like you feel differently than you do, and it doesn't require any of that stuff. It's just, let's start with the assumption that what you're dealing with is deal-withable, it's work-withable, and then operating on that assumption, let's start to look at what it's possible for someone to do, and then let's see from the range of what it's possible for someone in your situation to do. What are you willing to do? What are you able to do? What are you ready to do? What can you wrap your mind around doing? Let's try to go do it, see what happens, and then move forward from there. And the course is less about your specific situation and do this, don't do that. It's about creating a kind of a mental environment within you where your assumption is this is solvable. You're like the safe cracker, and you're the person who cracks the safe, and I'm a very safe cracker. You don't have to worry about me. But so life is the life that you want is contained. I lost it. The life that you want is contained inside of a safe, right? And you assume that it's possible to get in this thing, and you assume that there are things that you can do that will allow you to get into it, right? And there's a certain what is there? There's a confidence, there's a calmness, there's a swagger. There's just a let me tap here, let me try this, let me get my little I don't know what they stethoscope. I haven't really done a lot of like robbing and safe cracking but you see in the movies all this different stuff that you can do. And so whatever it is that you're dealing with in life, you assume that it's a solvable problem, it's an achievable, accomplishable project. And then you sit down and the Ever Better Life course is sort of like this huge mental toolbox that you got all your interesting stuff in there, and you start going to work on the problem. And the interesting thing is life instantly gets better. Like when you no longer have to choose between nihilistic negativity and saccharine, unrealistic, sunshine, unicorn, rainbow positivity. And when you don't have to vacillate between those two wildly unrealistic versions of reality, somewhere right in the middle, you're like, yeah, problems can come up, and usually those problems are solvable. And possibility is large and vast and beyond what I could possibly, I could probably even imagine. And given that, I want to always be primed to interact as resourcefully as I possibly can with life so that I can get as much of what I want, as little of what I don't, out of this experience. And when you're in that position, like that to me is the definition of like responding resourcefully or like being a resourceful responder. My favorite part of this is that the quality of my life instantly skyrockets the moment I start engaging more resourcefully with my reality. Doesn't matter what my reality is. If my thinking sucks and my feelings aren't great and my behaviors are shitty and I got all these habits that are not so great and I got results outside, my relationship's not that good, I'm not really making all that much money, I kind of am struggling in the health department or whatever, the health area of my life, struggling with the health department, I'm having a word association issue. Sorry. So I'm having all these problems, right? And there's something inside me that believes that until these things that I don't really think can really ever change, until those things change, I can't feel better. I can't improve my experience until everything's different. And I don't have the first idea how to get things to be different. I don't have the energy to try to make them different because my experience is so negative that every time I think about trying to do something, I just don't have the motivation to do it. What I have found is that when I can get myself to begin to engage more resourcefully with whatever it is I'm engaging with, the quality of what it's like to be me instantly goes up. I'm doing good work. The house that I want to build doesn't exist yet, but like I did good work. Look, the foundation is here. Look, I hammered this stuff together in the right way. There's nothing more depressing than working hard on something or struggling against something and then coming away from the struggle and the hard work feeling as if you'd accomplished nothing or made things worse. It's frustrating, it's demoralizing, it's all these different things. But when you begin to get this sensation that, like, you know what, I haven't solved this problem yet, but I was intelligently engaged with the problem, the challenges that I'm facing in life today. What it's like to be you starts to improve. And as that experience improves, you start accessing more resources within yourself, right? You start accessing intelligence, ideas, creativity. I mean, a willingness to go the extra mile, all this different stuff. And then that starts getting you more positive feedback. And it begins this kind of like upward spiral instead of being stagnation or like downward spiral stuff. And so what the course is about really is about facilitating that kind of a shift in you and just, equipping you with the stuff that will allow you to do things that will feel good to have done so that you feel like doing more things that will feel even better to have done so that you can start creating an internal, experiential, and an external physical environment that's conducive to evoking the best from you, basically. Because I love that when like my autopilot is optimized and it's like I feel like doing smart, useful, productive things. My environment invites me to do smart, useful, productive things that I will be glad that I did. Man, this is great. This is wonderful. This is cool. This is fun. It's easier being successful than it was kind of being a failure and a loser. You know what I mean? Like that was what my experience was. And the course is about helping a person shift from where they are into their version of that life experience flow state.
Absolutely. And yeah, this question, like how being okay with the process, you really learn the tools of how to be okay with the process. Because when you are bringing all this stuff inside of your awareness and you're starting to see all the choices that you have. Really, it is like there's this kind of 3-step thing that brings you about to the ecstasy of empowerment. Like when you really do have awareness and you're actually able to choose one thought over another. Like when you feel, because there's a quote, I think it's the As a Man Thinketh guy, James Allen, something like that. That is, this power of being able to choose one thought over another. It's like everyone has that power right now. You can choose the better thought right now, but you're out of practice, and it's not your habitual nature. Typically it's to choose the negative thought. If you feel bad most of the time, it's because there's some type of unconscious automatic processing where you're not choosing the best thought, and you don't feel like you even have the ability to choose a better thought. And so this process of learning about yourself in this way gives you the power to choose better. And when you're actually like, oh, I'm choosing this, this isn't just happening to me. Like that was just absolute magic for me the first time I realized this whole thing that I thought was just inherent, inevitable, unchangeable, I'm crazy, it's just the way I am. I literally experienced myself as though there were aspects of me that could not change. They were fixed in stone. They were imprinted. They were so deep. They were so unchangeable that I didn't even think, why would I even try to go about changing something that was so inherent to me as a person? But when you start to see all of the moving parts and pieces that make up this thing that feels like a very static and very real thing called me, and you start seeing that me is a process, and it's me is a thing that I'm doing, and me is a thing that I am choosing in every single moment, unconsciously and automatically, when you start seeing, oh, that's a choice, and that's a choice, and you really start feeling like this magical magician who has power over her own experience. And that's how you become okay with the process, because you kind of fall in love with the process, and you get so interested in all of the things that are coming up, and you get so interested in interested. Like I'm so interested in what's transpiring inside of me. I'm so interested in how, not in the things that you're saying, not in the things that you're doing or not doing, not the things that are happening in my outside world. I'm so interested in how I'm reacting to it, because that's where my power is. When you try to rearrange the external world to make it just so, I mean, you're constantly dissatisfied because the world never changes in the way you want it to. And this is the power of changing self. There is no one to change but self. And if you've spent enough time fruitlessly trying to change your external world and your partner and the people and the situations around you, and you've seen, wow, I'm not any happier. I don't have more of the things that I want. I'm really frustrated. I actually feel demoralized and beaten down. It's because you're changing the things that can't be directly changed by you. And so this 10-week program, we're going to be showing you all of the things that you actually can change, the things that you have, immediate control over. And when you start seeing it, it's obvious. It's like, I love how basic it is. It really is. You'll get in and you'll be like, oh, I get that. But I never looked at it in quite that way.
Is that what someone said?
Yeah. And seeing it in quite this way is what is going to help you to organize and simplify and streamline your experience, so it becomes so much easier to get from where you are to where you want to be, because it's clear and it's understandable, and you realize what it is, how how you have to be in order to have to be the things that you desire. And so it's kind of one of the ways we described the course early on is kind of like this very non-magical manifestation, like this it's very practical. This course, it's very fundamental and basic. And so if you feel like you just don't have a full grasp on how it is you are creating your experience of reality, if when someone says that to you, you're like, that's not true. I can't possibly be creating this because it's not good. Why would I be creating something that I don't enjoy? If that still hasn't totally clicked for you, you might want to consider enrolling because it's so powerful to see it, and to see it so plainly and clearly, and not in kind of, it's in a way that is graspable by you. And that's really what so much of this is about.
Yeah. So when you were talking about when you were seeing the stuff go on inside your head, like for the first time, things that once seemed to be just happening seem to just be a part of who I am. There's this wonderful thing that happens, and this is the process of empowerment. This is what it consists of, is that things that once seemed as if they just were or that they just happened start to seem like things that I'm doing. That's the transition to personal power. Where I mean, and it has nothing to do, by the way, with having somebody come out of nowhere and say, "You're making yourself feel that way. It's your fault," and you're like, "Well, shit. I mean, now I feel bad because it still feels like it's just happening. But this guy's telling me that I'm doing it, but that's not consistent with my experience. So I guess I feel like an even bigger screw up because I'm doing it wrong, and I can even see how I'm doing it right. And so there's this bad things that begin to happen. But what's magical is when someone can help you to actually begin to see for yourself that, wow, that was coming from me. How interesting. And it wasn't like I was doing it like it was my fault. It was more like there were things that were happening inside me, things my mind was doing that I didn't know it was doing, that as soon as I became aware that my mind was doing it, I couldn't let my mind do that thing anymore. And what seemed like a compulsion to me that I could not resist doing, I now couldn't force myself to do it. Have you ever had like a something that you really craved for dinner or something like that, and you ate it really frequently, or a favorite restaurant or whatever, and then like you got to a point one day where you're like, you know what, I feel kind of sick even thinking about that. That's what negative thinking becomes like. That's what those behaviors that don't serve you. It gets to that point where it's not like a self-discipline thing where you really want to do it, but you're restraining yourself. It's like the more aware you become, the more you kind of lose the taste that you have, the harder it becomes for you to even bring yourself to do things that now just happen unconsciously and automatically. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen like an infant, like a very small baby, like when it starts like holding its hands up and it's like looking at its hands, and you can tell, okay, something's going on in this baby's brain, and it's starting to figure out, okay, I can do something in here that makes these things that I can look at, I can make them move around. And actually, I mean, you don't do this in public, but like if you just kind of sit and watch yourself move your hands, it gets kind of freaky. It's kind of interesting. We take it for granted, but if you watch it, it's really weird. It kind of starts being surreal and kind of like, oh, can I feel the impulse in my brain? It's strange. And you feel the hand moving, and you try to distinguish between the intention to move and the feeling of moving. It gets kind of weird. And what this course is like, in a way, is kind of like starting to look at your mental hands. When you look at yourself focusing on something for the first time, and you start to do, it's sort of like you're holding up your mind, and you're going, oh boy, jeez.
It's kind of trippy.
Yeah, and your brain begins to form new connections, and it goes, okay, that's what it feels like to assign an unresourceful meaning to something. All right, that's what it feels like right there. That's what it feels like to engage in the act of believing I'm not good enough, right? And so that feeling of unworthiness, instead of being, that's what reality feels like. I'm unworthy, so I feel unworthy. What starts to happen is you begin to say, whoop, there's the feeling of me engaging in the act of believing that I'm not worthy of something. Now that's different. You understand? So when you begin to see what you're doing inside in order to create and sustain a feeling that you're not good enough, the fact that you feel that you're not good enough no longer means that you're not good enough. It means you're doing that thing that creates and sustains the sensation, the feeling, the conviction that you're not good enough. That's freedom instantly. Because now feeling that way doesn't mean that I am that way. It means I'm doing that thing I do that makes myself feel that way. Now, I can tell you that all day long, but until you actually see yourself doing it, there's a part of you that believes that you wouldn't feel like such a loser if you weren't kind of a loser, right? But when you actually see yourself focusing on what you don't want, thinking of that thing that somebody said to you that one time, giving this a meaning, whatever, and then you see the feeling flowing from that internal process that you're engaging in, you go, oh, feeling like a loser is just what happens when I do this, in the same way that feeling physical pain is what happens when I place my hand on a hot stove. I don't want to touch that idea. That's a harmful idea. It hurts me emotionally. It feels bad to place my mental hands on that idea. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not like someone who's richer or younger or more successful than you can touch that idea with impunity. If the billionaire puts his hand on a hot stove, it's going to burn too. So there's nothing wrong with you. Anybody who did what you were doing will be feeling the way that you're feeling. You know what I mean? And as you begin to discover that, it's just kind of like, oh, Okay, it gradually begins to unravel and erode these background assumptions that we have about what the fact that we have the problems that we have means to us, for us, about what's possible, about what's not possible, about what's inevitable, so on and so forth, right? So, like, a lot of people, their problem isn't their problem. Their problem is what they make the fact that they have those problems mean about them and about what they're not capable of doing and about the changes that they're not capable of making. And the more you see that the fact that you have the problems that you do makes sense given what's going on kind of inside your mind at this point, the less meaningful the fact that you have those problems is, because you just begin to say, oh, that's just there because I have a tendency to think in this way. And actually, the more aware I become of that tendency, the less that tendency exists within me. So you start disidentifying from all of this crap that's not you, so that you can actually start being more of who you really are, which is you minus your shitty ideas about what's wrong with you, basically, right? There was something else that you said. The mental hands, we got that. Oh, the question, right, was about how to be more okay with the process. And really super short answer, the way to be okay with the process is to be engaged resourcefully with it. When I am resourcefully engaged with the process of healing, when I'm resourcefully engaged with the process of changing my mind or of improving what it's like to be me, okayness occurs naturally. It just happens, right? So, all right, resourcefully, what does that mean? Another way that you might say this is how to be more okay with the process. I need to identify and adopt useful ideas that make being okay with what's happening possible. And I need to get rid of, I need to eliminate, I need to identify and eliminate ideas that I have, that I'm consenting to, that I take for granted, that are installed in my kind of mental hard drive, that interfere with my ability to be okay with the process, right? So, for example, I have an idea that says it's not okay that I am the way that I am at a given moment in time. That idea's got to go. Right? As long as that idea is in my mind and I consent to that idea, it's possible for me to be someone or something other than what I should be at a given moment in time. It's going to be impossible for me to be okay with the fact that I am where I am at this present moment in time. Right? I can't do it because I got an idea that says that it's not okay that I'm there. I cannot accept, consent to, embrace, be in love with, give life to this idea that says there's something wrong with me and where I am, and I should be somewhere else, and I should be someone else, and I should be further along, and I should have fewer problems. I can't entertain that idea and then let the process be okay. I can't cling to the idea that says there's something wrong with me or that I always screw things up. Because if I have in the background of my mind this idea that I always screw things up, and in the foreground of my mind I've got this idea that it's important to be okay with the process, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to not be okay with the process. Why? Because I'm someone who screws everything up. And that, you ever feel this way? Like, as soon as you identify something that would feel good to do, that would be good to do, that would help you get what you want, it's as if your mind says, okay, that's what we're going to avoid doing. That's what we're going to not want to do. That's what we're going to be afraid to do. That's what we're going to mess up. That's what we're going to forget to do. That's what we're going to find excuses to put off doing, whatever. And a lot of that is because I have assumptions about myself that make it impossible for me to do or to enjoy doing or to consistently engage in anything that I deem really powerfully positive, worthwhile, useful. I mean, if I believe I'm a piece of crap and then I say, okay, successful, happy, good people do da 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 da, I'm going to find it impossible to consistently engage in the behaviors, the patterns that I identify with success. If I think I'm a bad person and I think a good mother never raises her voice to her children, it's going to be really hard for me to resist the impulse to raise my voice to my children, because I have an unconscious agenda to generate evidence that will allow me to come to certain predetermined conclusions about myself and about how I'm not good enough and how I'm not okay and about how I need to feel, bad about myself and all this different stuff. What's really nice about this is, and this is another thing. Okay, so this is something about what the course is going to do for you. What implementing the things we're going to talk about in the course will do for you, because you have to do it. It's going to create an overlap between what's resourceful and what's natural, right? So that what you are inclined to do and what will be best for you to do will be the same thing. Instead of you trying to have to fight against yourself or something like that, we want to invest. Rather than spending our energy trying to force ourselves to do things that we hate doing or that are not natural for us to do, or force ourselves to abstain from doing things that we really want to do, thinking negative, having outbursts, overeating, overspending, whatever, I would rather invest some energy through developing awareness in making it so that whatever it is I think I need to do, whatever would be good for me to do, and what I find myself inclined to do, what I find it natural for me to do, are the same things. So that I'm not driving with my parking brake on. I'm going to take the time to learn how to drive a stick shift instead of saying I don't have time to learn how to drive it and then tearing up the transmission or whatever. Is it transmission? I don't know how to drive. Yeah, you know what I mean. Messing myself up driving down the road. It's like I'm going to take the time to learn how to operate this mental machinery smoothly, so that why suffer? I mean, why have ideas about the way that you should be and continue not being that way? Get rid of the ideas about the way that you should be, or go ahead and figure out how to become that version of yourself. Do one of them or the other, but don't have an image of the way that you should be and then allow yourself to remain some other way and then beat yourself up over the fact that you're not that way. It's like, one of the things for me is like personal freedom is the freedom to be as I am at a given moment in time, right? Without reacting to the way that I am in ways that increase my suffering. And it's the ability to change if changing is what I want to do. If I can't be the way that I am right now, right, I'm not free, no matter how capable of changing I am. On the other hand, if I'm not capable of expressing my capacity, my potential to create change, I'm not really fully free either. So a person who's really having a lot of fun and who's really happy and who's really free is a person who could be the way that they are or be some other way and not emotionally resist it, not beat themselves up for it, not feel bad about it, not take it out on other people, whatever. And a person who goes, okay, great. Now that I have permission to be the way that I am, let me look around and see if there's maybe something that I would like to change. Something that I'd like to, is there a preference that I'd like to go after here or something like that? Maybe I'd like to go make some money. I don't know. Now that I don't have to beat myself up for not being more financially successful, making money might actually be fun. Having money might be fun. I could give it to other people. I could teach other people how to do it. I could do all sorts of, maybe exercise now that I don't have to hate myself because of the way I currently look, might be fun to get into shape. Might be fun to really start taking care of myself. Might be fun to push my physical capacity. I don't know. There's this really wonderful freedom that comes up when you're not trying to apologize or make up for the fact that you exist, or apologize for the fact that you are the way that you are, or that trying to compensate for some non-existent inadequacy. You begin to say, okay, I'm okay, you're okay, everything's fine, nothing to apologize for, nothing to make up for. Given the fact that I'm fine the way that I am, who do I want to be now? And that for me is what personal freedom is about. It's like, what do I want to think? What do I want to feel? What do I want to do? What kind of results would I like to create in my life? It's like, that's a more fun way to live. Instead of operating in this like deficit mode where I'm constantly trying to get one up on other people, or avoid being one down, or make up for somebody told me I wasn't good enough or whatever. And so I'm constantly trying to offset the pain of that, or, once you get to the point where you're just emotionally okay, that's when life becomes really, really fun. I mean, not suffering is nice if you spend a lot of time suffering. But after you've sort of not suffered for a while, you begin to say, okay, this is great. It's nice to not suffer. What's next?
Yeah, really, yeah. Ultimately, what Awareness School and the Ever Better Life course are all about is personal freedom. It's being free. It's getting out of the repetitive nature of your mechanical mind and all of the prisons that you are unknowingly locked inside of. Any bad feeling, if you experience frequent bad feelings and you don't know where they come from and you don't know how to get out of them, you are in prison. You are imprisoned by ideas about yourself, things that happened early on in life. This is kind of how the trauma aspect, you do need to become aware of how the traumas in your life have created mental prisons for you. And so the work of what we'll be doing in this 10 weeks is getting you aware of the walls of the prison and what the bars are made out of, and what you can do to start setting yourself free. Because that truly is what this is. It is, a DIY, understand how your own apparatus works, really get inside there, understand yourself, see how, basically your whole life. And when I realized this, I was like, oh, no wonder. It's like we are living on these tracks. Like, you don't have autonomy. You aren't choosing anything if you aren't choosing consciously. Everything has been laid down for you. Your parents told you who you are. Society, teachers, everyone else has told you who you are. They've jammed your head full of like really shitty ideas about yourself, and now you've been living under the spell of that programming. And if you're not aware that it is programming and that it is a spell and it's not who you really are, you're going to take it for how life is, how you are, your lot in life, and you're just going to keep on chugging along the same preset down tracks. And this is about building your own tracks, about seeing what the tracks are made out of. What is this? How can I reprogram my own mind? And that's what you get to do. When you see all the parts and pieces it's made out of, it really does. It gives you this autonomy, this freedom, this, make your life what you want it to be. Respond in new, resourceful ways. Don't be imprisoned to that same response. If I don't have a choice but to feel jealous, but to feel angry, but to feel insecure, but to feel, sad and depressed about my past or what I haven't done yet, if I don't have a choice over feeling that way, I am not free. If you've ever, and that's the thing, is you have to learn how to get free, because, it's one thing to say it, but then it's another thing to actually set yourself free from these mental prisons. And so the more intimately, like, we're going to get in there and help you to see what it is that you're doing. And when you see it, it's just like, oh, you start choosing differently, and it becomes very easy, and it becomes very much like, how did I not always know this? Because when you see it, when you understand the framework, when you kind of take it in and digest it, it's like, oh, this is how it's always worked. It's worked this way from day one. I just didn't know it. And once you know it and once you see it, it becomes easy to work with, to play with, to work inside of. And I think we mentioned this in one of the other videos. It's this scaffolding that you then can, grow whatever you want, create whatever you want. Like, your outcomes, what you want in your life is completely different, but it doesn't matter, because it's not about content. It's about the pattern. It's about understanding, this framework, this model for how you are manufacturing every experience that you're having. And so it's going to be really fun. I think, let me see, this other question someone had was about time spent. And so we're going to meet for about 60 to 90 minutes every week for 10 weeks. And then there's also 3 bonus Q&A meetings, like ask us anything, let's talk about anything, walk people through certain processes in the course. So that's kind of the time spent. As far as on your own, you're going to have access to the course material to go through. And we just suggest listening to it again and again. Listen to it while you're doing everything, washing the dishes, listen to it just to get it on your radar. It's one of those things that you just want to listen to until it connects, all the dots connect. And sometimes that takes some time. But yes.
It's like maybe 2 to 3 hours per module, I think, in terms of on average, 2.5 hours probably per module. But you incorporate. You don't have to like sit down and be like studying for 2 hours. Like washing dishes, driving in the car. Those are actually the best times to do it, when you're kind of cleaning up, doing laundry, stuff like that. The main investment in time is going to be like net time, no extra time. So it's watching your life experience and thinking of what's going on right now. Because and this is one of the core things about like this course. This course is not like the way it is. We're not telling you, look, here's the truth about how your mind works, and this, it's a useful way of thinking about thought. I mean, it's a useful way for a thinker to think about the thoughts that they're thinking in a way that allows them to start thinking thoughts more useful than the ones that they're used to thinking. And so it's, awareness in and of itself really is transformative. You don't need a lot of information in addition to awareness in order to start creating the changes that you want. But awareness is kind of vague. It's kind of abstract. In the beginning, it's like, what am I looking at in my mind? I have no idea. The course, in a way, is kind of like like the Audubon Society's field guide to birds, to mushrooms, to whatever. They got a guide for pretty much everything. You look at it and you're kind of like, okay, meaning assignment, focusing on what I don't want. Okay, a belief tells me what's true about myself, the world, or other people. And then when you're watching what's going on inside your head, you go, oh, I think that was a belief. If a bird kind of flies by the window here, and I have my little field guide, it's like, I think it might have been blue. But I don't know what kind of bird it was. But if I've got my field guide and I've spent some time studying it, I'm like, oh, I think that's a jay, or I think that's a whatever, like a blue jay. But like, it's this ability to, because like thoughts, they flit by like a bird, like what was that? I don't know. And then there's a whole bunch of other ones coming, and you kind of lose it, But if you're kind of like, I think I relayed this in one of the other videos, right? I had been studying a concept called meaning assignment, which is basically like nothing in life has any inherent meaning. Things happen, and then I say to myself, oh no, I'm 5 minutes late. That means I'm not going to get to have my coffee. That means I'm going to be tired. That means I'm going to be crabby. That means my day's going to suck. that means my night's going to suck. That means we're probably going to have a fight. There's this like cascade of meaning assigned. Now, a lot of people unconsciously and unintentionally, they just assign meanings to life's events in ways that make them miserable. My child doesn't want to talk to me. That means I'm a bad parent. That means they're doing drugs. That means things are going terrible, right? But really, they just don't want to talk to you, And if you can control that meaning assignment process, or at least watch it, so that if you decide that the fact your kid doesn't want to talk to you right now means that you're a terrible parent, at least you can say, well, part of me feeling so bad is that I've told myself that, them not wanting to talk to me means I'm doing something wrong. That may or may not be true. Ooh, feels good. Feels bad to tell myself it means I'm doing something wrong. Feels good to say maybe that meaning that I gave that experience isn't true, doesn't have to be true, isn't accurate, whatever. And so the course gives you the ability to recognize an instance of meaning assignment when it happens very quickly in the flash of an eye, right, across your mind. So most of the effort that you're going to be putting in is going to be watching for it. So we're gonna present a certain bird to you, a mental bird in the meeting or in the course material, and then you go out into your life and you watch for your version of it, and you just see, all right, I'm probably giving some things in my life meaning. I wonder if I'm giving these things the best possible meaning for creating positive experiences for myself and for evoking from myself the kind of behaviors that are going to allow me to create the sort of results that I want. So it's a little bit of a time commitment, I guess. I mean, probably the biggest challenge would be attending the meetings. If you can't be there for the whole meeting, that's fine. If you can't be there for the meeting at all, even, that's fine. It's ideal if you're there because there's a certain energy and you can ask questions as they come up. But if you can't, you can ask questions before, or if you have a question about something we cover in one meeting and you don't, you watch the meeting after the fact, you don't know answer them, we'll probably fit the question in either in one of the bonus sessions or in the next week's meeting. It's pretty flexible like that. If you want to make this work, you'll be able to make this work. There's no question about that. They're just not, right? If your mind's offering up, if this isn't for you and you don't do it because it's not for you, I think that's great. I think it's a really good reason to not do something. It's just not for me, or it's just not the right time, or whatever. What I don't want is for a person to have a bunch of nonsense excuses that their mind serves up to them because they know this is going to be a really good thing for them to do, and they have an assumption about themselves like they do things wrong, or it's never the right time for me, or I better wait until later, or maybe I'll do it next time, and all this difference. And only you will know if the stuff running through your mind is a legitimate concern about why it might be prudent to postpone this until a later time. Or is that the thing that you do every time you start thinking about doing something that will really improve what it's like to be you? I know I had that tendency. I would enroll in the courses and spend the money on the courses, and then I wouldn't do anything with them. I would start saying it's not the right time after I had paid for them. That was my particular thing that I did because I wanted that. I wanted the dopamine hit of enrolling in the course, and then I was like, we'll get to that later. I got it on lockdown. I own it now. I can visit it anytime I want. The ownership for me was a means by which I procrastinated. But anyway, just watch yourself and I mean, are you assuming I don't want to get in this and then not engage with it? I don't want to enroll in this and not do anything with it. Well, then don't not do anything with it, get in it. And that's one of the things that we made, and one of the purposes of the weekly meetings is like, there is something happening. We're meeting, we're talking about it. It's not like, pre-recorded material that no matter how good it is, it's kind of dead and you don't know what we're doing and you don't know if anyone else is taking it or you all alone. It's like, no, we're actually going through all this stuff together. There's a certain energy, a certain momentum there. We're ending it right before the holidays, so there's that excuse is taken care of. We're taking Thanksgiving off, so that excuse is taken care of. This is a really good way to start preparing. Think about how good and how prepared for the new year you're going to be when you started working on yourself in September, and not in a frantic kind of I'm never going to think a negative thought again, and kind of a casual, easy I'm gonna start going on a date with personal growth. It's like that. It's not like I gotta find a personal growth strategy to get married to right away and live by it forever. It's a casual, let's experiment with this, let's try this out, let's give myself a chance to acclimate to it, let's build up the volume and the intensity over time, let me begin to wrap my mind around this, let me experience my resistances to these ideas and then kind of transcend those resistances and those objections so that I can actually get on to enjoying the benefits of the work. That's what it's about. So I don't think there's anybody in the world who actually doesn't have time to do this. If you really want to do it. I think not having time to do it might be a handy excuse for someone who kind of is looking for a way to kind of wiggle out of it, But the way the course is structured, it's the amount of time that you have to invest to attend the meetings or watch the meetings after the fact. I think that anybody could find a way to work it into their routine if that's really what they wanted to do. So
Yeah. Any one-on-one time spent with you? No, but it is a pretty small group. We're actually, I'd say before Wednesday's the last day to enroll, and we're only going to take 3 more people max. And so it's going to be an intimate group, and you'll have plenty of time to ask questions and yeah, so there's not any one-on-one, but it'll feel that way. Yeah, and I'll share the links so you guys can look at the investment and the payment options and all of that. I think that's it. I don't see any other questions.
and just another thing on the point of the one-on-one stuff, this is an excellent alternative to or preparation for one-on-one work with either or both of us, because the amount, and actually I'm very pleased, a number of people who have already taken the Ever Better Life course have decided to take awareness school, and I'm proud of that. I feel like that's one of the best endorsements possible, that someone who's already gone through the course material has said, I like this stuff so much, I want to go through a class that uses this stuff I've already studied as the crux of it, because I know there's more that I can get out of it. And in my experience, the people who do this kind of work, you start figure. Sometimes when you work one-on-one with people, you have to peel away a whole bunch of stuff that if the person had the right information, maybe they could have peeled away themselves, so that we could really start. There's a certain point of this awareness work where it's kind of like, I need a second set of hands here. I'm doing kind of mental surgery on myself, and it sure would be nice to have somebody at least hold the mirror for me or something. You know what I mean? Help me out, give me a reference point that I could kind of bounce ideas off of. In the beginning, though, there is a lot of low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of knots that aren't too hard to untangle and to untie, if you've got the tools and the skills to do it. And the course provides that to you. The group coaching is like a little bit of an extra help in that regard. And I mean, in the long run, it'll probably save you time and money in terms of working with this one-on-one, so that if you go through awareness school and you say, I really like this stuff, and I think I'm going to really hard charge this last remaining pattern that I have, or I really now feel prepared to benefit from one-on-one work. A lot of the times that's what happens. And when you get to that point, you're happy to do it. You're not kind of like, oh geez, now I got to do that. It's like, wow, I've done so much. I now feel like I'm in a position where I can actually maximally benefit from having somebody else here. And so this is like a really cool way to clear out the underbrush, to like lay the foundation for ultra productive one-on-one work together, so that I'm just thinking about like my happiest coaching experiences and my happiest clients. They are people who have taken this course. They did the course, they have the stuff. I mean, it's just, I feel energized after I work with those people. They feel energized because they already have a certain idea about what it is that they need to do, so that when they hear it from me, it's like ultra powerful. You know what I mean? Because they've already dealt with everything they're capable of dealing with by themselves, and that's always better than having somebody. It's a shame if I tell you something that you could have figured out on your own, because it's not as powerful. If you figure out everything you can figure out on your own for yourself, you apply everything that you can to the stuff that you're capable of applying it to, right? That's ultra powerful. And then if the only thing that I tell you in kind of like one-on-one work is stuff that really from where you are now, maybe you couldn't see it, you needed me to see it and show it to you, and then, oh, I saw it. Then we're doing kind of like maximally efficient work. And so I think that if you want to get on like an ultra high yield, super efficient personal improvement, this is an excellent place to start. And the smarter you are, and the more aware you are, and the more familiar with personal growth stuff you are, the more appropriate this course is for you, because this is one of those things where the more attuned a person is and the more experienced they are, the more they're able to derive from this material. Whereas like a new person might go through it and they might get 20-30% of what's there, and it's still a lot for them, but it's all that they can handle. People who have been through made the rounds in the personal growth world are often able to absorb more out of the course than they would had they not done other stuff before.
Yeah, I think that's it. So we start Thursday. The meetings are 5 o'clock Pacific time. And like I said, we'll go for 60 to 90 minutes. It's going to be super fun. Let me know if you have any questions, if you're thinking about enrolling. We are planning tentatively on opening up Awareness School again mid to late January, but no guarantees that the price will be the same. And so we're trying to figure out how we want to work this every round that it opens up. So let me know if you have questions. We'd love to have you join us. And yeah, have a great night, and we'll see you guys again soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Oh, good job.